everyone, and thank you so much, Tanya, for this nice introduction. And I must say I enjoyed also the start of the meeting with the pins and the maps. It's nice to see where everybody is coming from. It's really a good way of starting this exchange. I think you will have a great one for the coming days. So it's a pleasure for me to be here. And first of all, let me thank the EU Council of Europe Youth Partnership for organizing the Knowledge Forum. I must say that in these challenging times, more than ever, we see the added value of this joint partnership that we are working on, the European Commission together with Council of Europe. So the Youth Knowledge Forum seems extremely important and timely. And I think we can all agree that we have so much to learn, so much knowledge to gain from what we are going through at this moment. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has created a completely new situation for all of us, for people, for health, for social interactions, for our economy, for our society. And of course, it has had a huge impact on the youth sector, for youth workers, for young people. And we see effects already on young people's mental well-being, the loss of jobs, the difficulties to pursue studies, and perhaps a sense of losing out. So this carries enormous risks, also potentially long-term risks. And we see that these risks can be especially big for young people in precarious situations with fewer opportunities. So I must say the youth work sector has done an amazing job to carry on despite the difficulties. We see a lot of evidence around that this has happened, to support and empower young people to be there when needed. And youth workers themselves have shown a lot of examples of creativity and resilience to do their work, often in a very challenging and new way, be it virtual or hybrid settings. So it is a big learning phase for us all, and therefore we absolutely need knowledge and we need research to help to understand what is happening, to map it, to measure the impact, and ultimately to draw lessons for the youth sector for the future. To understand better, how do we need to innovate? How can we become more resilient? And how can we use all the potential from the digital sphere and more? There's so many questions, and unfortunately there are perhaps more questions than we have good answers today. But that's why this Knowledge Forum is very timely, to draw the spotlight to how we can use this evidence in the best way and improve our policies and practices. And I'm happy to recognize that youth research is one of the core areas of our long-lasting cooperation now with the Council of Europe in the field of youth. And I must say that we are particularly proud about what this cooperation has enabled us to achieve. So I'm sure even in these challenging times, it will be up to the expectations. At EU level, we try to complement member states' actions and support through various incentive measures in our programs. We operate within the framework of the so-called EU Youth Strategy from November 2018. And this strategy guides youth policy development both at European level and also in member states, covering the years 2019 up to 2027, with its three core pillars of engage, empower, and connect. And the strategy aims to ensure that policy cooperation can make the most of youth policy's potential. And for that, it helps to promote youth participation in democratic life. It also supports social and civic engagement to ensure that all young people have the necessary resources to take part in society. And this work can, of course, not happen without an evidence-based knowledge approach. And knowledge typically gathered come from consulting young people themselves, but also from people working in the sector and from research. And we try to use this evidence in all our activities, actually, and our tools, be it under the EU Youth Dialogue, the youth goals, the European Youth Portal, Eurobarometers, or mutual learning activities that we organize regularly between policymakers and the youth sector, in our indicators and dashboards, etc., because the list can be long. One particularly powerful tool I would like to highlight that was really important during the first part of the pandemic. It was the mobilization of the EU Youth Strategy platform, gathering relevant partners and stakeholders involved in the implementation of the EU Youth Strategy, with the purpose to exchange experiences of the impact of the crisis on young people and the youth sector. Of course, youth policy is not operating in isolation, luckily. It should not be like that. The European Commission has embraced a strong link between formal and non-formal learning, and you can see the latest evidence of that in the education package that the Commission tabled on 30th of September, where you have one important policy communication setting out the way forward for a European education area by 2025, and another policy document including an updated digital education action plan. So there we can see that formal and non-formal learning go hand in hand and are, of course, both heavily affected by the pandemic. So in that sense, knowledge and research and learning from the lessons of this period, it would help on gaining and doing this very much as a joint effort to work together between education and youth sectors. That's what we will try to do from the Commission side. And if you look at our upcoming programs, you see perhaps more concretely what I mean. We have upcoming fresh youth programs, Erasmus+, the successor of the current Erasmus+ program, and the European Solidarity Corps. And I would say these are good practice on how we try to bring together formal and non-formal learning, and where the youth sector, of course, has a very important part. You will also see that in the Commission's recovery plan, the so-called New Generation EU, it will also have many opportunities to cater for the needs that we have seen coming after or from the pandemic, for the education and youth sector. And I'm also happy to share with you that the Youth Guarantee has recently been reinforced to also help for the transition from education and other forms of learning into the world of work. So we stand at the gateway here between the current multi-annual financial framework that will end in 2 months and the new one that will start in 2021. You may be aware negotiations are still ongoing between the Council and the European Parliament, and the Commission's role is to try to support and help as much as possible that the negotiations go forward. And we hope here that we will have a timely start of all relevant programs for youth, because it is dearly needed. And we hope for a significant budget increase of the future Erasmus+ program. It will have a much strengthened youth chapter. I'm happy to share with you that it will provide many more opportunities and new opportunities for young people and youth organizations to exchange, learn new skills and better cope with challenges. And youth workers will be able more than ever to benefit from mobility projects, gather expertise and exchange best practices with their peers from other countries. And evidence has helped the Commission defining these new support actions. For instance, we saw there was a need to provide more space and new ways for young people's participation in civic and democratic life. And we therefore designed a specific project format for youth participation that will be part of the future Erasmus program. And another new feature will be the incorporation of Discover EU, which is now a separate pilot program, but will be integrated into the future Erasmus+ program. And based on consultations and evidence of the current pilot, we could clearly see there was a need to have a stronger non-formal learning dimension that we intend to implement. So there are many important projects on the agenda for youth policies across Europe. And I'm also grateful to see that the current German presidency of the of the Council this autumn, they have taken important steps for the youth sector. There is one important step, a milestone for drawing up a European youth work agenda. And I think this agenda will be a key development for the coming years. And I'm sure we will have the chance also to cooperate a lot in the partnership and with Council of Europe around the priority actions in this agenda. So the Commission for sure is ready to support this work. So let me stop there. Let me thank you again for organizing this forum. I must say I also enjoyed, I saw some of your really nice knowledge breaks that you had prepared in the uprunning of the forum. They are really short and snappy and very informative. So thanks a lot for doing that effort. I enjoyed them. So all the best for a successful forum. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the invitation and congratulations on putting this forum together in these difficult circumstances. I also enjoyed what I've seen so far and what I've been following up to the forum. I like the Padlet map. I think it's another evidence how, particularly young people, are the ones who are very quick to show creativity, initiative, ingenuity in adapting to these circumstances, and it's something that I'll perhaps return to a little bit later. I'll try to be really brief because I would also like to give us an opportunity for discussion to answer a couple of questions. I absolutely agree with Sophia that partnership is important between the Council of Europe and the European Commission, also in particular because knowledge is important, research is important, expertise is important, and it's important on several levels. I mean, it's important because it is about knowledge and about research and about facts. Even though we are behaving as if this would be unchallenged, it isn't. We live in times where knowledge-based public policies are not the rule anymore, where the role of science, expertise, research, knowledge is being challenged by many, including those in positions of power. So what you do is very important because what you do is contributing to evidence-based policies. I mean, sometimes you feel that we have, after 200 some years from the Age of Enlightenment, stumbled into endarkment, where we're turning around the Horatius and Kant's premise of I dare to know, I dare to understand, into I couldn't care less, I prefer to be ignorant. And that's affecting, of course, not only how our societies function and interact, but also how the public policies are being adopted in many cases. So what you do is important. I think it's extremely important. You are part of that frontline defense, resilience against that assault on knowledge, on rationality, really, in our societies. Now, to achieve that, it is very important how you do it. Research, as any other field of human activity, has its own protocols, has its own rules, has its own language, and that's normal. But there is also always a risk that you get lost into the processes, that you get lost into your own language, jargon, that sometimes can be sort of creating a barrier between what you do and between other people who are not part of that circle. And I know you are aware of that. You're addressing that also. You will be addressing that in this meeting when you're talking about communicating research outcomes, and I think that's very important. It should not be ignored how important it is. Also because of growing mistrust, attempts to demean or stereotype knowledge, research experts in our society. So I saw that when you're you will be looking into communicating research, you're talking about translating knowledge. Translating is, of course, important. It's when you have something in one language and then you translate it into another so other people understand. But I also think that if you make an effort in escaping, in trying to keep your eyesight and your minds on the horizon, and keep in mind that all what you do, all these important activities that you do, research, evidence, has a means, has an objective, has an end result that has to produce outcomes and have an impact on the lives of people outside. It will help you to reduce the need for translation. It will, I think, also make it much more easier for people to understand and support what you do. And I think with that, you will be able to increase the impact of your important activities. And we should not underestimate, of course, the capacity of people to understand complex scientific problems. We see, for example, that everybody is an epidemiologist nowadays. That was a joke. Finally, I think that you should continue what you do, and I think that it is our determination, together with the European Commission, through the partnership, also to continue to provide a platform for this important work on contributing and on knowledge-based youth policies. Also, Sophia has said in how many ways the situation and circumstances we are going through are affecting the situation of young people. From their employment prospects, to education, mental health, and I think it's very important for us to be able to respond to that, is to have that evidence and research and knowledge about how to best respond. So that's something that you need to continue. But I think there's also a need to expand the scope of the youth policy research. I think that we have to reinforce the ways in which the expertise, the competencies, the specific experience and understanding of the problems we are living with of the young people, of their creativity also, that this finds the way into policy making, not only on youth policies, but in all relevant fields. I think that is something that in the Council of Europe we are working intensely upon, trying to bring that youth perspective into all areas of policy making, and I think that it's starting to be recognized by member states and appreciated. And really, there's not a single priority I think we are dealing with right now as the societies, but also as Europe or as its respective institutions, the Council of Europe, I can speak about, where this contribution of young people, that input to policy making, would not only be valuable, but I think it's indispensable. It's essential. Whether we talk about how we respond to the climate change, environmental issues, how we deal with technological challenges, artificial intelligence, information disorder, hate speech, lessons of COVID, impact of COVID on our society. Tomorrow we have the conference of the Ministers of Education, where we'll be looking at the education response to COVID and COVID impact on education. And among the four issues there will be the recognition of diplomas, something that of course is affecting hundreds of thousands of young people across Europe who are graduating during the time of COVID, and where this is being affected and may have serious consequences for their future. And again, it's another issue where I think we absolutely need that evidence, knowledge, input also from young people. Finally, I mean, for the organizations such as the Council of Europe, an essential questions on the functioning of our democracies, how we can help our flailing, sometimes even failing democracies to get their act together, how to address the growing gap of mistrust towards institutions, democratic institutions at all levels, national, even European, which is particularly present among young people, although not at all exclusive to young people. And we need to understand how young people perceive and engage with politics and social and economic and other issues in their communities, but also more broadly, globally. That input is essential, I think. And as I said, there is a growing recognition in the Council of Europe of that importance. We see how it can work on in our intergovernmental sector on issues such as artificial intelligence, where the contribution of the youth representatives has been very well received and is considered to be very important. We have high expectations of similar role to be played by youth representatives in other important aspects that I've already of our work that I've already mentioned, including in the recently established Intergovernmental Committee on Anti-Discrimination that will be dealing with enormously important issues that are also, of course, affecting young people. There are plans for the youth campaign that would be addressing the challenges that our democracies face in the times we live in. And as I said, in all these aspects, that contribution of young people is essential. But in order to be effective, to be recognized, to be acknowledged, to be taken into account, it has to be articulated. It has to be articulated and presented in a way that is compelling, that is effective, that is cannot be ignored. So assertiveness is also a part of that. In order to have that articulation, I think the role of research, your role, the role of knowledge and evidence is crucial and is essential. So I have great expectations from the forum. I have great expectations from you. I think we will be keeping each other very busy in times to come. I think I can can speak on behalf of both Sophia and myself that when it comes to the partnership, we continue to be there in order to provide support and platform for your very important work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matjaz. That was quite a dense input from the two directors in terms of policies, in terms of expectations, but also in terms of the role of knowledge and research in the age of deniers. And how do we engage with all that? How do we sustain and resist these populist waves in continuing to support evidence development for right decisions? I would invite our graphic recorder to share a little bit the state of her drawing. She's been trying to help all of us grasp as much of the contributions as possible, while thanking Sophia and Matjaz for the trust and for the high expectations that you place also on continuing the work of gathering research, understanding the realities, needs and voices of young people and their experiences, and helping to translate it not only within youth policy, but in other policies. I take a few questions here. So one question is, as policymakers, how do you integrate completely the results and recommendations of research in policymaking process? Another question is, how do you have any ideas of how to coordinate better the different research initiatives supported through Horizon program and through other structures? And there is a comment from Aisha that engaging in joint visioning by all different actors based on knowledge is crucial for addressing the grim situation where science loses battle, democratic institutions are losing trust of young people, etc. I invite Sophia and Matjaz to give your brief reflections on some of these questions.
From our perspective, it's absolutely crucial that whatever we do, be it on the policy side or program side, we always have to have evidence. And in a way, at the European level, this is inbuilt in procedures. So we cannot come up with a policy proposal or a program proposal without a proper impact assessment, where you have to present, you have to argue for your proposal based on clear scientific evidence and consultations and research. So we have it inbuilt. It is almost, I would say, automatic. It has really become part of the culture, how we work in the Commission. So I feel very, let's say, comfortable in this setting that I'm used to already consider a lot of existing research. I think the challenge is simply to have the time to absorb it and find perhaps the most pertinent evidence for the need. I think this is a challenge that perhaps it's a joint challenge for those who produce the evidence, but also those, of course, who use it and in between. So, but I think it's part of how we work on our policies and programs. In the youth field, definitely, I can take perhaps 2 examples. We have embedded in the whole EU youth strategy the way it was conceived. It was based on evidence, but also how it is implemented. And its particular tools, I think they all radiate evidence gathering. They could not happen actually without using the important evidence out there. And let me take the EU Youth Dialogue as a first example. I think it's a very nice mix of reaching out and talking, consulting with young people directly. But also since a few years, we have integrated youth researchers to be part of the process. And we see it really adds a lot of value. It's for the whole process. I think it's important for the young people themselves. As sometimes also it's good to be questioned if you have a particular viewpoint, an idea. And if you see it questioned from research, maybe you think twice or you think in a different way. Or on the other side, if you see that what you had in mind is actually confirmed by research, it's a big empowerment and also a learning process. So I think that's a very positive experience we've had since when we started to include the youth researchers in the EU Youth Dialogue. We also see the different tools we have now to monitor the implementation of the EU Youth Strategy, and that goes from everything from the EU Youth Strategy platform or between stakeholders and policymakers, which I mentioned in my introduction, but also the Youth Wiki, where we have a lot of information at systems level on youth systems. We know that we have a lot of research coming from different programs, and from Erasmus. Definitely, we have a lot of innovative practices that have been tested, and we can build on that. But we also, as some of the questions mentioned as well, from Horizon 2020 now, but we know from the future Horizon Europe, there is an enormous body of research that is very relevant for youth. So this is, let's say, the fact that we are embedding and then allowing for this to happen through the platform, through the wiki, through the youth portal or our other mechanism, and of course through the partnership. We have built in this evidence building in the way how we work and monitor the youth strategy. So I'm really convinced that we can do more, of course, but I'm also confident that we are quite good already in integrating. Perhaps the challenge, if I finish with that, is what I touched upon in the beginning: how to sort, let's say, how to sort and find the right evidence. Even only looking at the EU programs, I know, looking at the excellent projects under Horizon 2020, there's a lot of evidence there, but how to go from this excellent evidence into concrete and understandable inputs in policymaking, I think there we all have still some work to do.
Thank you, Sophia. And not forgetting that your portfolio is a combination of youth and education. And a lot of the researchers are very much embedded in formal education structures or research structures. So we also try to support that process from their side. Matjaz?
I don't think we should be, talking for the Council of Europe, creating new original bypasses in order to bring that youth component and research into it. I think what we need to do is to make sure that what we have as a part of our political administrative decision-making structure, that the youth component is there, and it's the results of the research and knowledge have a chance to get through, and that is already happening, and that's facilitating the work. Because of course, Council of Europe being an intergovernmental cooperation, we can already see that the outcomes, the results of the intergovernmental work in the area of youth, in particular, also because we have the co-management system that sort of reinforces that and brings the youth component in much more direct and influential way into the intergovernmental machinery, that the results, the outcomes stand out in when it comes to youth field. I think it fares very better comparatively to some other fields. I would not, of course, say that in other areas of the Council of Europe intergovernmental work there is less research, less competence, less expertise. But I think we see systematically when it comes to youth work that it is underpinned by the results of the very thorough, high-quality youth research, and that we are able, therefore, to come up with the intergovernmental outcomes recommendations in important fields that actually become policy foundations that they're actually defining and determining policy in very important fields. And that would not happen. That does not always happen in the intergovernmental work. And the reason why it does, I mean, you know, looking at the recommendation on youth work, for example, and a number of others that have been taken, shows that that capacity and that quality is there, and is there because of the research. And that's something to build on, both in when it comes specifically to issues that are related to youth policy, continue where we are on the, but then also, as I said, try to find and expand that into other areas of the Council of Europe work, where I think that bringing that contribution in the ways we now already are doing. I mentioned the artificial intelligence, I mentioned the anti-discrimination, which will be dealing with hate speech. All these are intergovernmental activities where the contribution from the youth sector is very prominent, very respected, and that builds on the reputation that has been achieved on the basis of the work in the youth field, that really benefited, as I said, from the research evidence-based approach that I think you excel in. So I wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. I would just really do everything we can to make the wheel that we have work even better.